financial markets suffer from a peculiar kind of collective amnesia. With every new wave of euphoria, investors seem to develop an astonishing ability to forget the painful lessons of the past, convincing themselves that the same mistakes, dressed in new clothes, represent a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity this time around. Sir John Templeton, the legendary fund manager who delivered 15% annualized returns over 38 years, coined one of the most iconic phrases in finance. According to him, "This time it's different," are the four most expensive words in the English language. And he was right. Nothing drains an investment account faster than blind optimism masquerading as financial genius. Jesse Livermore, a pioneer of market speculation and the real-life inspiration for the protagonist of the bestseller Reminiscences of a Stock Operator, became famous for amassing fortunes by betting against the market during historic crashes. His philosophy was clear and direct. There is nothing new in Wall Street. It can't be, because speculation is as old as the hills. Whatever happens in the stock market today has happened before and will happen again. And there is one bubble in particular that perfectly illustrates this cyclical repetition, but is rarely mentioned in modern discussions. We're not talking about the dot-com bubble of the early 2000s, nor the 2008 financial crisis. We're talking about an episode you've probably never studied in depth. When that bubble burst, the consequences were devastating. The market plunged 50%. Corporate giants lost between 60% and 80% of their value. Inflation soared from 3% to 11%. And it took a long 8 years for a full recovery. We're talking about the Nifty 50 bubble in the early 1970s. To understand this bubble, we need to go back to the late 1960s. The United States had just gone through 2 decades of unprecedented economic prosperity following World War II. Factories were running at full capacity. Suburbs were sprouting overnight. And Americans genuinely believed the nation was invincible. That optimism had solid foundations. The country had defeated Germany in the war, put a man on the moon, and enjoyed consistent economic growth. Money was flowing, confidence was high, and, most importantly, there was an unshakable belief in perpetual progress. At the center of this optimism stood the stock market. Between the end of World War II in 1945 and 1970, the U.S. stock market had risen more than 350%. This unprecedented bull market gave birth to a new investment philosophy that rapidly gained popularity. It was the one-decision stocks strategy. The concept was elegant in its simplicity. Invest in companies so dominant and powerful that you only needed to make one decision about them: buy. Selling them wasn't just premature, it was fundamentally wrong. These companies became known as the Nifty 50. They weren't risky startups or speculative ventures. They were well-established blue chips generating stable, predictable cash flows: Coca-Cola, American Express, McDonald's, and dozens of household names that defined American life. To investors at the time, these companies were bulletproof. The prevailing mindset was crystal clear: buy and never sell. After all, these were eternal businesses destined to grow indefinitely alongside the U.S. economy. There's a fundamental rule in markets. When something looks like a perfect investment with no apparent risk, it's usually a financial grenade with the pin already pulled. And that's exactly what happened with the Nifty 50. By the early 1970s, these stocks weren't just expensive. They were priced as if the laws of financial gravity no longer applied. For context, the average price-to-earnings (PE) ratio of the U.S. market hovered around 15 times earnings at the time, a respectable, normal, conservative multiple. But the never sell mentality turned Nifty 50 valuations into fairy tale numbers. Coca-Cola traded at 46 times earnings. Xerox, the tech darling of its day, was at 49 times. McDonald's reached a stunning 86 times, and Polaroid, at the peak of the mania, traded at a surreal 90 times its annual profits. On average, Nifty 50 stocks traded at an astonishing 42 times earnings, almost triple the market's overall multiple. But the issue went beyond individual valuations. Market concentration had reached dangerous levels. The 5 largest Nifty 50 companies represented roughly 1/4 of the entire U.S. stock market. Collectively, the group made up about 45% of total U.S. market capitalization. That meant every dollar invested in an index fund was almost half exposed to those 50 untouchable companies. Investors had convinced themselves these corporations would grow forever, justifying any price paid today. The warning signs were flashing red, but no one wanted to see them. Then came 1973 and 1974. And reality, as it always does, came knocking hard. Macroeconomic dominoes began to fall one by one. Oil prices quadrupled almost overnight, triggering a global energy shock. Inflation, which had been tame around 3%, shot up past 11%. Unemployment doubled from 4.5% to 9%. And President Nixon effectively ended the gold standard, fundamentally reshaping the international monetary system. The stock market went into freefall. Between 1973 and 1974, U.S. stocks plunged 50%, marking the worst bear market since the Great Depression. And when the economy collapses, overvalued stocks don't merely correct, they're obliterated. The Nifty 50 stars suffered catastrophic losses. Coca-Cola, once thought indestructible, fell more than 60%. McDonald's, the symbol of corporate America, lost over 70% of its value. And Polaroid, which traded at 90 times earnings, collapsed by more than 90%, erasing decades of gains. The one-decision stocks became a collective financial obituary. But the real pain wasn't just the depth of the losses, it was their duration. This wasn't a quick V-shaped recovery like the one after the 2020 pandemic. The market took a full 8 years, until 1981, to crawl back to pre-crash levels. Investors who thought they were buying eternal growth ended up trapped in financial purgatory for nearly a decade. If you're looking at today's market and feeling a strange sense of déjà vu, you're not alone. Mark Twain once said, "History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes." And while today's market isn't identical, it certainly rhymes with 1972. In 1972, the Nifty 50 made up nearly 45% of the entire U.S. stock market. Every dollar invested in an index fund was essentially a massive bet that those companies would justify their sky-high valuations through future growth. Fast forward to today, the movie has the same plot, just with shinier special effects. The American tech giants, affectionately dubbed the Magnificent Seven, now represent roughly 36% of the entire S&P 500. That's right, 7 companies. Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon, Meta, Tesla, and Nvidia now carry the weight of the entire U.S. equity market on their shoulders. If that level of concentration sounds eerily familiar, it's because it is. Yes, the Magnificent Seven are innovative. Yes, they dominate their industries with an iron grip. But so did Xerox, Polaroid, and Avon in 1972. The Magnificent Seven are the modern echo of the one-decision stocks that ruled 5 decades ago. And what about today's investors? They act as if there's only one decision to make with these stocks: buy and hold forever. The script is frighteningly familiar. And their valuations? Surely they're reasonably priced, right? Not quite. Let's just say they too are priced as if gravity doesn't apply. Google and Meta trade at 28 times earnings. Amazon at 35 times. Apple at 37 times. Microsoft at 38 times. Nvidia, the darling of artificial intelligence, at 50 times. And Tesla? A jaw-dropping 247 times earnings. Are they great companies? Absolutely. Are they overowned, overloved, and overvalued as if indestructible? Also yes. And just like in 1972, investors are telling themselves the same bedtime story. These companies are untouchable. They'll grow forever. Technology makes it different this time. Their dominance is permanent. Their business models are fail-proof. All it takes now is a few falling macroeconomic dominoes to find ourselves right back where we were 50 years ago. A surprise recession, a prolonged rate shock, an escalating trade war, an unforeseen black swan. The possibilities are endless. Warren Buffett summed it up perfectly. What we learn from history is that people don't learn from history. And here we are again, staring at a top-heavy market, pretending valuations don't matter, quietly whispering the four most expensive words in the English language. This time it's different. Is it really? History isn't saying the market will crash tomorrow. It's not saying the Magnificent Seven aren't extraordinary companies. They are. But history reminds us that no company, no matter how dominant, is immune to economic cycles. No valuation, no matter how justified it seems in the heat of euphoria, is above the laws of financial gravity. The lesson of the Nifty 50 isn't to avoid great companies. It's to avoid complacency. It's to recognize when optimism has crossed the line into reckless speculation. It's to understand that excessive concentration, inflated valuations, and herd mentality together create the perfect setup for devastating losses. Jesse Livermore was right. There's nothing new on Wall Street. The players change, the technologies evolve, but human psychology remains stubbornly the same. And it's that psychology, greed, fear of missing out, and the unshakable belief that this time is different, that fuels every bubble, every crash, every cycle the market insists on forgetting. Until history rhymes again.